started, I would just like to say the official welcome to all of you to our United Way Worldwide Town Hall. On behalf of the United Way Next Board of Directors and our staff, we are thrilled to have all of you here. It is with great pleasure that I turn this over to our board chair, Barbara Edmond, who will do our official welcome of the day. Thanks, Barbara.
Thanks, Carol, and good day, everyone. I will echo, it's always so great to see everyone's faces, and I really appreciate your coming out today for this important conversation. My name is Barbara Edmond, as Carol said, and I'm calling in today from Liberty, Maine. I'm honored to serve as the 2023 board chair of United Way Next, and I have the great privilege of just being able to give a little introduction today. So again, thank you for coming. United Way Worldwide Town Halls are one of our most popular programs, and I think it's because they represent everything that United Way Next promises. And many of you have heard me say this before, but it's really three things. It's connections, it's communication, and it's contribution. We love the opportunity to connect and find out what other people are doing. We really value communication. So what's going on in the network? What's new? What things should we know about? And the reason we want to know that is because we really want to figure out how we can each contribute to helping the United Way network, communities, local United Ways continue to thrive and be the best that we can possibly be. And however you come to this gathering today, whether you've retired from United Way after a long career, or whether you're an alumni who used to work for United Way, went away to do other things, or whether you're a local United Way staff person, it doesn't matter. We are all together part of this wonderful community of diverse leaders who really have a passion and commitment in their hearts to the United Way movement, and that's what makes us all very similar. That passion is the thing that drew us to the movement a long time ago when we first came in and keeps us coming back. It's that sense of purpose and belonging, and it's pretty special. I know as I look at these faces across the screen, Lexi, you're getting an abundance today of love for United Way, love for what it stands for. And we've all dedicated a really good part of our life to this important work. So it's with great pleasure that I get to welcome United Way Worldwide, Alexia Savage. She's Vice President of Network Engagement. And as some of you know, United Way Next was actually started by United Way Worldwide well over 30 years ago. We both had different names back then, but a lot has changed. And since then, we've enjoyed a really long partnership of service and dedication to keeping this legacy of United Way strong. United Way has always been about continuous improvement. And I look across on the screen and I see many of you, many of us, I too was involved in previous continuous improvements efforts. You might recall the standards of excellence, the mobilizing the modern United Way, the bold move goals and playbook that came with them. And today, Lexi is going to really share what the current thinking is about what it takes to be a thriving United Way. And I know that many people in this network are still actively involved with advising, mentoring, and lending a helping hand with local United Way. So it's really important that we all stay up to date. We know what's new. We know what we should be thinking about and promoting. And I'm very excited myself to be learning all of that. So again, thank you for coming. Lexi, I think many of you knew her she's in this new role, but she was previously the regional director for the Southeast. But we're going to let her introduce herself and tell you the rest about it. I know she's been in the network for quite a long time. So welcome everyone, and Lexi, take it away.
Thank you, Barbara. I appreciate that great introduction, and thank you, Carol, for hosting me. And to everyone that's involved with Next. It's great to see you all. I see lots of familiar faces, and I'm excited to be here with you. So just a little bit about me. I'm based in West Palm Beach, Florida. I was with United Way of Palm Beach County as the Senior Vice President of Research Development and Communications for 8 years. So I know all the opportunities and challenges that come along with workplace campaigns, fundraising, marketing, special events, and all those fun things. And I've been with United Way Worldwide for 4 years now. As Barbara mentioned, I started out as the Southeast Regional Engagement Director, and I'm now the Vice President of Network Engagement. So I have the opportunity to support all 1,000 United Ways across the US, which is now the official number. And as I'm sure you're all aware, we've had some mergers and things over the years. So that's another thing that continues to change, but I'm really excited to have the opportunity to share with you the Thriving United Way framework. As Barbara mentioned, we've had a few frameworks over the years. Those of you that have been around for a minute know we've certainly had our fair share, but there are some things that are different about the Thriving United Way, but we also really acknowledge the history. So I'll share with you the agenda for what I plan to walk through. So first and foremost, that important history of the frameworks. We're not reinventing the wheel here. So we really took some time and went through all of them. I'll go through the Thriving United Way framework, where it is currently with you all, the success statements, which we have drafted to help just kind of give some high level direction and ideas to local United Ways, where we are in the process, some next steps, and we'll have plenty of time at the end for questions and discussion, but I also welcome questions and comments throughout. I know Carol is helping to keep an eye on the chat, so if something jumps out at you or you want me to be aware of something as we're on a particular slide, please feel free. So some of you might recognize the scan of this essential attributes of a community impact United Way that we took off of Eric Glazer's desk at 701. That was developed in 2003. The Standards of Excellence in 2005. I think Barbara also referenced the Global Standards of Excellence when United Way International and US joined into one. We had the Business Model Guided Toolbox, Modern United Way most recently in 2018, and some others that we'll take a look at. So this is certainly not our first shot at developing a framework. So what we did first internally, and actually this is like the anniversary of the original development of the Thriving United Way framework. We started a year ago internally going through all of those different frameworks, the bold plays, some other tools and resources that we found to, again, make sure we're not reinventing the wheel, but we wanted to take a look as we evolve as an organization, what's missing, what's new, and then what are those best practices that will continue to be important to us. And we also looked at other organizations because, you know, much of what United Way does is unique, but a lot of it is also nonprofit standards and best practices. So that strong organizational community leadership, the growth mindset, willingness to try new things, especially in the current landscape, right? We have to be able to pivot quickly. We must know our community, both social and philanthropic landscapes. United Way's sweet spot and superpower, our ability to engage and mobilize the community and our community members around important issues. Ensuring that all of our functions are aligned to drive both revenue and impact. As we were socializing this, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but this was truly co-created with the local United Way network and with many of you who are on the call today. And one of the things that folks commented on as we were working on it was that there seemed to be this sort of pendulum swing over the years where we would focus really heavily on impact and focus really heavily on fundraising. And this is really taking a holistic look at the organization, understanding that we really can't have one without the other, and they are interdependent. So then the ability to develop those impact strategies that can be invested in by corporate partners, major donors, community members, the very important shift from transactional relationships with corporations and individuals to really deep relationship building, donor stewardship, and ongoing communications, not just that one time a year where we show up for campaign and then, all right, see you next year. So really working on that, innovating, using data, and then of course the ever important strong organizational foundation, making sure that we have that good board CEO relationship, governance, risk management, financial accountability, all things that United Ways are typically very strong at. So then came the development of the Thriving United Way framework. So we did go through all of these. We captured those common themes. We really thought about what might be missing, what else did we need to include, but we also wanted to think about what would be different. So as Barbara mentioned, and as we saw at the beginning, we have a whole history with frameworks. So what were we going to do differently at United Way Worldwide to ensure that this would last, that it would actually be helpful to local United Ways? As you know, I came from a local United Way. Most of my team has a lot of local United Way experience as well. I think collectively we have more than 200 years of experience. So we really wanted to make sure that this was something that would be embraced, that any United Way of any size, anywhere in the world could see themselves in this, would find it supportive. We really wanted it to be co-created with the network, not some sort of top-down, here's the thing that United Way Worldwide developed without talking to you. Now, best wishes, but co-created, highlighting the things that are most important to the success of local United Ways, and then making sure that we can track metrics and outcomes, and that we will shift the way that we work at United Way Worldwide to ensure the support of the Thriving United Way so that we can truly have a thriving network. So that includes like the data that we collect, the tools and resources that we provide, how our team is organized and potentially reorganized. That's my network support team, not to scare anyone from Worldwide that's on the call, but we're looking at how we as regional engagement directors and the network engagement and support team can best align to make sure that we are really, truly supporting this work. We've gotten lots of rounds of applause this year every time we talk to a United Way group and share that we have reduced database 2 by 40%. Anyone that's ever had to complete that knows what a gift that is, and we will continue to refine that, and again, to make sure that we're collecting the right data that is not only helpful to us, but helpful to all the local United Ways to drive performance, to understand what's happening in every market, and to really encourage and foster collaborative work across the network. And I'm excited to tell you, especially after today, I'm going to have to update this slide. We've been tracking our engagements. It's well over 700 individuals from local United Ways, about 650 local United Ways that have engaged in the process with us from all over the world. Again, just reiterating, we want a CEO of a United Way in rural Kentucky to find this as effective as the CEO in Miami, as a CEO in one of our newer United Ways in Africa, or CCK in South Korea. And to do that, as I'm sure you're aware, is challenging. So the only way we could really do this successfully was to involve as many local United Way representatives as possible. And we have. So to date, those are the United Way numbers for engagement, and we are continuing the process, which I'll share with you in a little bit where we are. But again, just very important that this has been co-created to drive success. For those of you that were able to attend United in Purpose in Houston with us, we did a couple sessions and we had input cards where folks could fill out the way they thrive for the different areas and share those with us. We had more than 200 people complete those cards with great best practices that we're looking forward to sharing. And we had more than 110 folks sign up to participate in work streams with us to help move the work forward. So that was really exciting, and the engagement is important because it's truly for all of us. Okay, so now here's the big reveal. I will just note It's probably hard to see. Hopefully you can, zoom in a little bit or see it pretty well. When we've shared this most recently at United in Purpose, some folks said, well, I still feel like it's too many words. But then at the same table, someone that was pretty new to the network said, yeah, but I really need those words. They help me and I need them. And as I'm sure you all know, we can wordsmith things endlessly. We're trying to get this to a place where it really is pretty good to go, understanding that it's going to need to be iterative, right? Like we evolve as an organization constantly, we need to. And so as we continue the work, we may determine that things need to be added or taken away. New priorities might emerge. We might decide that maybe something isn't as important, but these focus areas, the bold color blocks across the top indicate the focus areas, and then the lighter colors underneath are the success factors for each of those focus areas. So as I went through this and we talked about former frameworks, most of this probably looks pretty familiar to you. The thing that I was really excited about is that we started with 5 focus areas. Network citizenship was folded into community leadership. And based on feedback from the Council of States, our state association friends, the Network Advisory Council, and local United Ways, there was a very strong consensus that network citizenship get pulled out and be its own area. That was especially important to us given the last few years that we've had with transition. And I think it's a testament to our new leadership with Angela Williams, the new leadership team, the direction that we're heading with network involvement, and especially with Angela's commitment to us being in service to the network. And I think it really shows the engagement that we've had and the relationship building that we've accomplished the last few years has really been great. So I wanted to give everyone a minute just to take a look at this. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, I promise. But you'll see in there that there are just key things that remain important and have been important to us as an organization. I also just want to call out that at Worldwide, there are multiple projects happening simultaneously. So like the building the plane while we're flying it analogy, I think we're building maybe 4 or 5 planes and trying to fly them all in the same direction simultaneously. So when you look at brand strength, awareness, and relevance, I'm sure you're aware that there is a brand refresh that's currently underway. So we're making sure that we're all staying very interconnected on that work and how that will inform this. There's also work happening with the resource development team around diversified revenue streams. So again, also making sure that the important work that they're leading is informing this, as well as strong organizational foundation and really across the board because of the strategic intent work happening at United Way Worldwide, which is really our strategic planning efforts. And then of course, with the community impact team, we recently had a community impact survey that went out that captured a good amount of the work that's happening in the network, but not as many United Ways as we hoped would complete that, because we really, really want to have a good idea of what kind of work is happening across the network so that we can capture best practices, hopefully bring in some funding opportunities for the network, connect local United Ways to learn from each other, to partner, and to foster collaboration. And so that network citizenship piece is important, but I think you'll find too, as you read through it, and Carol will provide this deck to everyone when we're finished today. It's all interconnected. Like I mentioned before, folks had commented as we were engaging in this process about the pendulum swing from a focus on our impact work to a focus on our fundraising. All of these are interdependent. They are equally important. This is not, ranked or in any particular order, and they're all really contingent on each other. The other thing that's been very exciting, I mentioned that we've presented and shared this and received feedback from United Ways of all sizes. A good example is our colleagues in Africa. All the 3 United Ways there are newer. The CEOs have all been in their positions for less than 2 years. And the feedback that we received from them, that this was so helpful, that it was sort of provided some guardrails, guide rails, and direction to them. They might not be doing all of these things right now, but it gave them something to work towards. And then when we're talking to some of those larger urban Metro One United Ways that have been around for a long time and doing great work, even some of them said, we're doing most of these things, but I don't know how well we're doing all of them. There are certain areas that we would really like to work on. And we had folks even say, you know what, I feel pretty good on all these, but we really need to focus on our network citizenship. And so we love to hear feedback like that. It's been really great. And I'm also pleased to share that on every presentation that we've done a poll at the end. And I think, Carol will ask you a similar question at the end of this. But, can you see yourself using this at your local United Way? Do you find it helpful? And it was a 100% positive yes response every single time we presented it. So that really reinforced, and I think it just demonstrates the importance of involving local leaders all along the way, that true co-creation. Is there anything in the chat that we want to pause to talk about before I move on?
Thank you. Yes, I would like to call on Diane to ask her question if she would be willing.
Sure.
And then we have a second question by Kyle.
Hi, Lexi. Diane Lutzen, so former UWA colleague. Can you talk about the extent to which Worldwide holds itself accountable to these success factors as well? Like, how does Worldwide approaches in terms of building its own culture of a thriving United Way?
Thank you. That's a great question. So as I mentioned, the multiple planes that we're building and flying, one thing that I did fail to mention is a culture task force that is also with network leaders, but also looking at our internal culture as well, and the internal strategic intent work. So making sure that we are aligned around this, that we're focused on doing all of the same things that we are asking or guiding the network to do as well. So that is certainly a part of it. And we're realigning our service delivery to the network so that we are supporting each of these areas of the Thriving United Way framework. So focusing, I believe Angela will be presenting probably later in the year on the strategic intent work, but at the core of it is, our equitable community solutions, how we drive the brand. And these all also align with the 5 priority areas that we are delivering on in service to the network, which were derived from 2 different network surveys a couple years ago. And so that is around fundraising at scale, public policy and advocacy, providing the support tools and resources, that high level branding air cover, which will be a big result of the brand refresh, and public policy. Did I address your question? Well, okay, great. Thank you, Diane. Was there another one?
Yeah, thanks.
Kyle Ron, if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Hi,
Sure.
this is Kyle Ron. Hi, Lexi, former CEO and now consultant, calling in from Hawaii. So, Carol, it is 9:30 in the morning here. Lexi, quick question. How or what plan or strategy is there to ensure that the really small United Ways see this, understand it, and can grasp it?
Thank you, Kyle. That is hugely important to us. And just in case everyone is not aware of the breakdown, across the United Way network, so I mentioned we're at about 1,000 local United Ways. A little more than 900 United Ways have 15 or fewer staff. 770 United Ways in the US have 5 or fewer staff. About 300 of those have 1. So we are being very mindful of that, and we have been very intentional about engaging smaller United Ways throughout this process. We've had representation across all regions and all size United Ways every step of the way. And one of my favorite stories, since you asked, Kyle, was when we were at United in Purpose in Houston. I had a CEO of a small United Way come up to me after and give me a great big hug and tell me that she had been in the network for 25 years, that she has never seen her United Way represented in one of the frameworks or felt so supported or seen as she does with the Thriving United Way. And it still gives me goosebumps to think about it, because it was such a great moment, because that's our exact intent with this, is that the small United Ways, wherever they may be on the continuum when they look at this, can find it supportive. And with each one of these success factors, we will have tools and resources to go along with each one of them. And we will have tools and resources that are accessible by everyone around the world and that will be easy to use. We're trying to, again, keep it simple. Some of you might know that keeping things simple is not always our strength. And so really being mindful of making sure that it's not too jargon heavy, that when we build out, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but when we build out the assessment and some of the other resources that go along with it, it is simple, that it's not 100 questions that take you a day and a half to complete. Really, really being mindful of all of that and making sure that we have some turnkey things that are just really easy to access, whether it's like, some LinkedIn learning style short videos, a toolkit or playbook with examples of how other United Ways of similar size have accomplished some of this work. Another one of those planes I referenced is we have 2 Network Advisory Council. Is everyone familiar with the Network Advisory Council with United Way Worldwide? Another thing that there's been many iterations of over the years, but it's a group of local CEOs from around the world that are providing some strategic input and guidance. And of that group, I co-lead the network performance team, project team, which has currently been focused for the last 6 months or so on the Thriving United Way framework. And then Tom Lowry, who's the VP of Talent Development and Learning, is co-leading the best practices project team, which is helping us determine how do we best identify the best practices that are happening across the network, capture them and share them in a way that is easy to access. Right now, it's really very anecdotal, and the regional engagement directors share things. We reach out to you all. So really trying to get, and I think this also addresses Diane's earlier question too, really trying to get to a place where we have some really good but simple processes in place to support all of this work. And we're going to do it all by the end of this calendar year. So we definitely have our work cut out for us, but we're making really great progress. Carol, I was going to move on to the next slide, but I see a lot happening in the chat. Is there anything else that you want to call out now?
So Patrick Jinks and Mike Durkin both had questions. So Mike, I'd call on you first if you'd like to ask.
Sure. Thanks, Carol. And Lexi, thanks for putting this all together for us today. I'm here outside of Boston. This looks great, and it's got a lot in it. And as you said earlier, it builds on some of the preceding frameworks and thinking that's going on. And I think you also said, execution is going to be a key on this whole deal. And I'd be interested in what you think is what are you all going to do differently to make the execution better? Because I'm not saying it's defensively, but some of my colleagues on this call were great executioners. We got it as far as we got as far as we did. So what's the secret sauce in Alexandria and the network that is going to make the execution even more effective? Thanks.
Well, thank you. And that's a great question. And also it's great to meet you because I've heard great things about you over the years. So nice to finally meet you. There are a few things that we definitely want to try to do just better not from past experiences, but from what we've been doing for the past couple of years, at least as far as it comes to how we provide the service and support to the network. If it's helpful, actually, Mike, if it's okay, I think I have a little bit more information on that on another slide. So I will talk more about that. Carol, I'm going to go to this next slide real quick, just so I can get it out of the way, because this is just a quick one. And then I think we can answer and address all the questions with this next slide. This was just something I wanted to show you all because it helped us as we're determining metrics and KPIs for each of the success factors in the Thriving United Way, we thought as we're socializing it with the network, and to Kyle's question about those smaller United Ways, what does success look like? If you're doing all those things really well, regardless of size, what does success look like for each of those areas? So we just came up with a success statement. And the purpose of these was to help us as we started to work with local United Ways in the metrics work stream. So the metrics work stream is just now, and I'm going to move on to the next slide because this has our timeline. So the metrics, we developed the success statements. The metrics work stream is going to wrap up the end of this month. Mike, this also might address some of your question also. We are, again, continuing to involve local United Ways throughout the process of all sizes, also making sure that we have international United Ways, small, medium, and large in every step of the way. Determining what is measurable, what kind of evidence do we have, what do we already collect at United Way Worldwide that we can use for this, like Database 2, but also really looking at changing Database 2, the different surveys that we do, how our teams support and work with the network. So we'll be changing for example, the way that the network engagement team currently works with the network will likely shift to better support this. The tools, resources, and learning opportunities that we provide will all align with the Thriving United Way. We have deleted at least 1,000 pages from United Way Online so far, and we're trying to, I see some clapping, we're trying to delete more and really get that to a place before we determine if we need to burn it down and start over, or continue to fine tune it, just so that it's very easy for folks to find all related resources to the Thriving United Way, how we support them, the data that we collect, and how we work internally and across all departments. And so a lot of that is still happening. We're also developing a maturity model, which is something, again, that I think we've seen over the years, different versions of it. I believe it was the business matrix was a sort of maturity model. So we're working on developing that with the goal that local United Ways could go through a self-assessment. Again, trying to keep it very simple. And we're trying to, based on feedback that we've received from the network with surveys and in these conversations, scale back on the administrative lift to do some of these things. Again, understanding that we have so many smaller United Ways that just don't have the time to complete Database 2, an impact survey, an assessment, membership certification requirements, and all the things. So we're really looking also at how we can consolidate some of those things. Over the years, I think some of the data that we collected with Database 2 has become less relevant or useful. So if we're not using it and we're not giving it back to the network to use, we're getting rid of it. And we're really just trying to make sure that everything we ask will help inform this work and help inform the work of the local United Ways. So we're also, the next work stream after we wrap up metrics, which I'll be glad, and also if anyone wants to participate in any of these work streams, you are welcome to. The maturity model and the self-assessment tool work streams will start next, and we're going to run those October through December to help build those out. Again, just making sure that it is very accessible, easy to use, easy to understand. We're aligning all the tools and resources that we do already have, because we've got some great stuff, and to make sure that we have that ready to go, but then figure out where do we have gaps, where do we need things, because the network citizenship piece is a little bit different. We don't really have a lot of examples or tools and resources for that. So just making sure that we have all of that. The service delivery redesign is what I mentioned, where we'll be looking at our teams, how we support the network, how we work with the Council of States, with Next, and with our other partners to really help support this work, knowing too, and I'm sure you're all aware, but we have far fewer staff at United Way Worldwide than we did 3 years ago. And also, acutely aware of our own capacity and want to make sure that we're partnering with the right folks to deliver on things that are, their expertise outside of our own or in partnership with. So this also has really been, the Council of States have been strong partners in this along the way as well. And so then the goal is for Q1 of 2024 to have the official rollout of this to the network. And I can stop sharing now. We can just talk and ask all the questions in the chat. But another part of it, I think that has just been great, is that folks are already running with it. We've got state associations and local United Ways that are starting to use it for their strategic planning process. I mentioned we had the Way We Thrive cards in at United in Purpose. Folks took them with them so that they could use them for staff and team and board activities. And so it's really been very well received, and with so many folks already being involved in it, it's our hope that it will continue to be embraced. And again, really doing it in partnership, not alone. So I think that's a piece that's been very helpful too.
Lexi, we had a question. First of all, thank you for all of that. That's a lot of great information, and I'm sure people are still processing kind of what they've heard. Patrick Jinks, if you want to go ahead and unmute and ask your question, and then we'll move to Ed Rivera.
Thanks, Carol. Yeah, Patrick Jinks. I'm in Columbia, South Carolina, former United Way lackey. I think you answered my question already, Lexi, actually, about, is the intention to build sort of I kind of call everything a university, a program where the network is trained and coached and resourced on these 24 success factors. And it looks like that's exactly the deal. So I'll ask the obligatory question about, are we going to get these slides?
Absolutely. You can have the slides. I'm also happy to join any follow-up conversations, or if anyone has any follow-up questions that they'd like to ask, you can reach out to me anytime. I'll put my email address in the chat, and it's also at the end of the slide deck when Carol sends it out. Thank you.
That's great. Ed Rivera, I'll let you go next. And then Mark, if you want to unmute and ask your question, Mark Lemaire.
Thank you, Lexi. This is Ed Rivera from Albuquerque, New Mexico, former CEO and a few other things around the network. In fact, I was a Group 1 intern a couple centuries ago. Actually, there's a few of us on here. My question is about any thought process or plans that might engage national volunteers in advocating for the work, or even helping to drive it regionally. Some of those efforts happened in the past, particularly as you may know, in the early versions of National Corporate Development, NCL, now GCL. That's different now, but we did have a lot of national volunteers helping to advocate and drive the strategies and the engagement model that was really pretty successful at the time. So just that's the broad question.
Well, that's great to know also the history of that kind of engagement. And yeah, I would say yes. I don't think that we've specifically planned yet on how we will do that, but we know that we likely don't have the capacity on our own to get it out as broadly as we'd like to. So of course, that's a big purpose of sharing it with you all and talking with Carol about, our partnership with Next and how we'll all continue to work together to support the network. So absolutely, I think there's a lot of possibilities, and I'm also very open to suggestions.
Well, some of us have some history with that. Maybe another time we can talk with you about that.
Would love that. Thank you.
Hey, Mark, did you want to ask your question?
Yeah. Hey, Lexi. A question, real practical, related to the rollout. I'm assuming part of the rollout will include that assessment tool related to the framework. And in advance of that, we're entering strategic planning season ourselves. And I think you had mentioned a minute ago, there's some United Ways that are starting to use the framework already as part of their planning. And, we're just wondering if you're willing to share that offline or in some way. We'd love to learn how that's already being incorporated into planning.
Absolutely, Mark. I'd be happy to share that with you. And a lot of folks are, just getting started with it. So it's great timing. But we can definitely share that. And I think it's just a great tool for sort of guiding organizational goals and what areas to prioritize and focus on. And I think, everyone's talking about revenue diversification, United Way and all nonprofits. So absolutely happy to talk to you about that.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
I have not seen any other, Rob Reisnider, you've got your hand up. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Carol. Hi, Lexi.
Rob. Hi.
Good to see you.
It's good to see you.
Thanks. Rob Reisnider in Cincinnati, Ohio. As we all know, there are an increasing number of new United Way CEOs that are coming from outside the network. They don't have any United Way career experience before they come into the job. And I get a sense that they are really drinking from the fire hose more than many. Are you spending any time thinking particularly about the new United Way CEO and how you'll provide, how the framework and United Way Worldwide can provide guidance to these new CEOs without overwhelming them with data metrics and everything that the Thriving United Way framework will include?
Yes, and it definitely can be a little overwhelming. It's a lot. We are the new CEOs is definitely a part of it. And I can say that that's part of what Carol and I are also talking about and our partnership and how we can really help benefit that. And Rob, maybe even bringing back some of our CEO circles and things like that, just to really help as folks are starting. Currently, the way that we have it structured is that the regional engagement directors reach out in partnership with their state association if they have one. We work with them and we set up some time to go through all of this with them and show them the tools and resources. But I think there's still that desire, and I'm sure all of you can relate to it too, to have that network and that connection with folks that are, starting around the same time as you, dealing with some of the same experiences and challenges, and to have that, group and community of support. So definitely continuing to think about that as part of it also.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
There's another question by Greg Burris. If you want to unmute and ask, that would be great.
Sure. Forgive me if you've already addressed this as part of the framework, but as we go around and talk with employers and CEOs, their number one challenge is talent attraction and retention. That's only going to continue probably for the next 20 to 25 years based on the inversion of the labor curve, which started in 2018. So there's going to be more jobs than people to fill them. Seems to me that's one of the spaces that United Way agencies can step into to help these employers with their number one concern, because there's tons of research that shows that if they allow their employees to get engaged with the community, that makes the employees sticky. It also is really attractive to younger generations. My daughter's top two things she was looking for in a job when she graduated from college were not on my top 20 list. That's how different it is. So as we work with organizations and employers in the community, anything we can do to help them with their top concern seems to me that would really boost our relevance. And we're a United Way that kind of lost our relevance a number of years back. And so we're trying to regain that. So that's our strategy. I was just curious whether or not that's embedded as part of the framework.
It is, and I'm really glad that you raised it up because I forgot to mention it. So thank you. It's another one of those projects that's happening simultaneously. There's 2024, everything's just gonna happen all at once. Tom Lowry, who I mentioned before, who is leading the Culture Task Force, also co-leading the Best Practices Project team. is also redeveloping what all of our learning opportunities will look like and our professional development opportunities in alignment with Thriving United Way, but helping with that talent retention piece in particular and growth. And, you know, we've all seen amazing talent leave the United Way network. And so we want to make sure that we can offer things to retain that talent. And so one of the programs, and maybe Tom would be a great upcoming guest on one of the next worldwide town hall opportunities. He's wonderful. If you haven't met him, I know you all love him. And he is also working on a really robust next gen leadership program that will address exactly what you're talking about, Greg. And again, I think, I don't know exactly when the rollout of that will be. I think that will probably be later in 2024. But yeah, there's a lot happening all simultaneously that will come to fruition probably around the same time. And hopefully, you know, address, I think, a lot of what we're seeing. Thank you. Were there other questions in the chat that we missed, or anybody else? Any comments, thoughts?
Yeah, I was just going to ask if there was anyone who may have thought of something they wanted to ask and didn't have a chance to write it in the chats. You can certainly unmute yourself or raise your hand so we can call on you.
And please, I put my email in the chat. I had a typo the first time, sorry. So grab the second one. But please feel free to email me. Carol's going to send you the deck. So as you have time to go through it, I'm sure that's what you all want to do in your free time, but I welcome further input, conversations. And again, if anyone's interested in participating in the work streams that we will have going on through the end of the year, that will be great. So when I see Barbara, your question in the chat is that you're curious about what's happening in the area of donor engagement and retention. I will say that there are no plans for United Way Worldwide to develop any sort of technology to address these issues. We will gladly partner with other organizations that offer the right technology and resources. But one of the projects that's happening with the resource development team, and I think Kathy was on the call. If Kathy wants to come off and speak to any of this, you're welcome to, Kathy. But there is a big project underway that is all focused on revenue diversification, talking to and interviewing 41 high-performing United Ways of all different sizes that have really grown and diversified their revenue successfully, talking to them about what they've done. And this is, of course, in the workplace, but also beyond the workplace, direct to community donor, major donor stewardship, developing pipelines, new business strategies, corporate partnerships outside of the workplace, fee-for-service volunteerism opportunities, events, all the different ways, grants, of course, all the different ways that United Ways are diversifying their revenue successfully and planning for the future. And so that is also going to be a big part of this, and that one pillar focus area around revenue diversification too will have a host of tools and resources to go along with it beyond what we offer currently. Keith, I see that you have your hand raised. Hi, how are you?
You're on mute, Keith.
How are you doing, Lexi? Great to see you. Great, and I have more of not so much a question, probably observation and comment. But first of all, I think you guys are doing great work. I know it takes a long time to go through this and rebuild it. But you just got to have the patience and perseverance. And I applaud you all for what you're doing. The thing, my observation still, and when I was a couple of years ago interiming in a state organization, and I saw the tremendous lack of respect they all, so many of them had towards United Way Worldwide, some of it justified, some not. But I also saw a very substantial lack of cooperation, true cooperation, even among United Ways, and even in that state. And I really am glad to see network citizenship pulled out, because I think sometimes a huge linchpin in all this, or perhaps one of the white elephants, is the true lack of comprehensive, meaningful network cooperation, network to network in all this. And while a lot of people want to put the attention or issues on your door, at the end of the day, once this is complete, it really is going to take, I think, a huge effort to get a critical mass of both local United Ways back into feeling aligned with worldwide, as well as better aligned with each other. And I would even go so far as to wish that, even based on the last comment about resource development related, and I'm the outlier, I guess. I think the national organization absolutely should be driving and running development strategy and raising dollars on behalf of the network. And I know that's a dangerous point to make.
It's not a dangerous point. It's actually, you're totally right. And that is at the top of the list. And that's something that Alice Archibald, I'm not sure if everybody's met her yet. She's the Chief Development Officer, and Angela have spoken about. And there is an absolute intention to fundraise for and with the local United Way network. 100% agree. And yes, the collaboration, the playing nicely with our neighbors. I think we've come a really long way relationship wise. I think Michael Smith is on the call, or he's one of our Network Advisory Council representatives. He could speak to that as well. But I think with the trust building and the collaboration across the network, even with the development of the Thriving United Way, I think it's really helped to break down some of the walls that maybe were built over the last few years, all the reasons that you're all very aware of. And I think we'll hopefully continue to head in that direction. There's been a lot of support, in particular around that network citizenship piece. So that's exciting. I also do still spend a good amount of my time monitoring and managing disputes between local United Way. So they're still there, but we're working on it. Terry, I see your question in the chat about AI. And I have to tell you, as we were doing this, building out the Thriving United Way framework, I started to play around with Chat GPT. And I had already spent about 6 months of my life on building out this framework, talking to hundreds of local United Ways, going through a variety of iterations. I typed into Chat GPT, tell me what a thriving United Way anywhere in the world looks like. And in about 20 seconds, it produced about 90% of what I had in the framework, basic, like concept-wise. But the part that's missing was the network citizenship piece, and then the human component, right? Which is critical to the work that we do. And that engagement and having the conversations about all of it. But there is also another project. Every time somebody asks a question, I think there's another project that I forgot to mention. There is a team that is actually looking at, part of the team that's looking at our customer support of local United Ways, United Way Online, of how we can leverage AI to help with some of that. As well as how we can teach local United Ways to use AI. So for example, FreeWill, which I think a lot of you have expertise in and are well aware of, they now have a great AI grant writing tool, which is wonderful for smaller United Ways that don't have time and capacity. So I think also making sure that folks are aware of the great tools that are out there that can support that work, because that's a huge time saver. And Chat GPT also, once we started playing around with it with the Network Advisory Council project team, and we just started asking it different questions, it created for one of our colleagues a 10-minute inspirational speech. And this colleague was a pastor before he started for United Way, and he said it was the most inspiring speech he's ever given. It can do, acknowledgement letters, donor request letters, all kinds of things. So I think that there are great ways that we can leverage it to free folks up to focus on the things that really require the human. And of course, you always have to go through it after and, localize it and give it a little bit of that personal touch. But it's a great starting point too.
I love that. I just threw a comment in the chat and said we might need to start using AI at United Way next.
It's pretty cool once you start playing around with it. Thank you. Were there other questions, comments?
Any other questions?
Lexi, I have one. This is Patrick again. You've extended a couple of invitations on this call for any of us to participate in any of the work streams. And I'm curious, without going into too much detail, what that actually means. How's that set up? What does that entail to participate in one of the work streams?
It's 4 hour to hour and a half meetings between now and December, and maybe a tiny bit of homework. And then, of course, any, additional feedback that you want to provide. But we're pulling together groups that expressed interest and would like to help be part of the process. In particular, we're going to be working on the maturity model and the assessment.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. If you're interested, just shoot me an email and I can send you, I have the exact dates. I just don't have them in front of me, but I can send anyone that's interested the exact dates. And even if you're interested and you can only participate in 2 out of 4 meetings or whatever it might be, that's fine too.
Awesome. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you. Great. Well, I know I stand on the shoulders of giants. I appreciate all of you and the work that you all have done over the years. I'm grateful for your partnership. I hope that you will continue to engage with us as we go through the Thriving United Way work together. I truly value all of you and your input. So please, I mean it when I say, reach out, email me. And we really do take it all into consideration. I could show you the first version of the Thriving United Way framework and you would know, you'd see how different it is now. Oh, and sorry, Michael, I see you have your hand raised.
I would just say, as a small United Way and fairly new to the network, I've seen a tremendous change in the connectivity between top leadership and the local input and the response. And Angela talks about Worldwide's there to work for local. I'm a local CEO. I serve as the state chair of Georgia, and I'm on the NAC, which is one of the small United Ways representing that. So I'm very connected, and communication works both ways. But there is a coordinated effort for the small United Ways to be heard and things scalable for us and sharing of information across different networks and sizes and scope. We just got hit by a level category 2 hurricane in South Georgia. Angela sent me a personal email the next day. The new disaster response staff that they just hired due to environmental changes we're all seeing called and has connected me with different VOAD and response and FEMA connectivity, which is a huge, because this is our first, really disaster or FEMA level event we've had. So that's a huge addition to the Worldwide network. So I really believe Worldwide and the leadership that's in place is really making an effort to move us in a positive way, and the value of what state associations bring for member services, connectivity, trust. And so we all really thank Lexi for her work through the last turbulent years, but we're heading in a very strong direction.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that.
Michael, there was a question about where you were from. I don't know if people caught the name of your local United Way.
Well, United Way of Greater Valdosta, but we cover 11 counties across South Georgia, right on the Georgia-Florida line of I-75.
Thank you. Thanks for being here today too, and all your great comments in the chat. That was very helpful. Okay, well, I don't see any other questions. Certainly we can take more if there are. I do want to call on a couple of our members to share a few updates. This was originally slated for an hour and a half. We wanted to make sure there was plenty of time for Lexi to do the full presentation and for everyone to ask their questions. So without any further questions being asked, I'm going to turn it over quickly to Jim Yu. And I am just excited that Jim is here today representing United Way Next, our board of directors, and the Engage and Exchange work group who puts on all these great events. So Jim, I'll let you share and then you can call on Terry.
Thank you, Carol. Lexi, thank you for spending time with us on this town hall. It was very informative. We appreciate all that you're doing at United Way Worldwide and all of the advances that you're making. So on behalf of my co-chair, Terry, who's going to talk a little bit, we wanted to invite all of you for future United Way Next events. We've got a ton of them available. I'll put the link in the chat. You can see that we have over a dozen additional events the rest of this year, and we're excited to provide them to you. I think they will be of help to United Ways, to individuals, staff, to alumni, and to retirees. So we invite you to take a look at those and join us in additional events coming up. And Terry, I think I'd like to invite you to say a few words.
Thank you, Jim and Carol and Lexi. Thank you so much for the presentation today. I'm going to make a plea for your assistance. The Engage and Exchange work group is really working to assure that we have meaningful content for you, both current United Way professionals, alumni, and retirees for the future. And one way you can help us do that is to make sure that you complete the satisfaction survey that will come your way right after our session today. We've not had a great response to our request for feedback, but we value it tremendously and hope that you'll take that minute or two that it takes to tell us, what did we do well today? What do we need to improve? And what would you like to see for content in future? So thank you all so much for joining us, and don't just ignore that email when you get it. So.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Jim. I really appreciate both of you, especially serving on this Engage and Exchange work group and all the great work that you're doing for United Way Next. So we're really nearing the end. Before we do that, I know Caitlin was going to do a very impromptu poll and basically ask you to put in the chat, if you were to give us a rating today from 1 to 5 stars, 5 being the best, with maybe a one-word comment of how you feel after being a part of the session. It could be related to content or whatever. We'll take that along with the survey responses that you'll send to us in the email that you'll receive likely next week from Caitlin, to just help us improve our programming and hear some great feedback on what you'd like to hear from us. So thank you for that. I want to say thanks to Barbara Edmond for kicking us off today with that great welcome, to each and every one of you for being here, to our guest speaker, Alexia Savage, who has just been a great partner with me in the last several months as we've been working on a lot of things behind the scenes. And a special shout out to Michael Smith for his willingness to share today as a local United Way leader. Given all that he has going on with a hurricane in his community, certainly could have found another place to probably be today, but he chose to be with us here at United Way Next. And to our board of directors, our work group chairs, and everybody that's volunteering for United Way Next, that's serving across the network and connecting, especially with those new local CEOs who just benefit so greatly, and to our endowment and plan giving faculty who have also inspired the current staff across the network. We value everything that each and every one of you do, and I just want to make sure that's expressed today. So without further ado, if there's anything else, you're welcome to stay on for a minute or two and say hello to some friends. Otherwise, you're released to go and enjoy the rest of your Thursday afternoon and weekend ahead. So thanks, everybody. It's great to see you.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate it. Have a great rest of the evening.
Thank you, Lexi.